My daughter, she watches too much TV for my liking. But as a modern day parent, TV is kind of a go-to. But she doesn't watch like The Office or... Nice. What is it? What is it? Damn you, man. You always interrupt my... I have an intro and you come in with a luscious Pilsner and you interrupt my...
Sexy Pilsner. Just to make your nipples hard while you're trying to focus. Like...
You know how hard it is for me to pull words from the vault that is the back of my brain that's clouded over in the morning and covered in cobwebs, and you got to be like, crack, look at me.
Oh, just the equivalent, just like when you're trying to be good, just a giant devil's cake, just covered in vanilla and dark chocolate and sprinkled on top, like the devil's food with the whipped cream. The whipped cream is more decadent than anything a human being should actually eat. Sorry, that sucked. Fuck me. That sucks. I'm sluggish too. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Yeah, you did. But what is it? It's a stout. It's a
Pilsner.
Pilsner. Looks like it should be a stout. It's got some Flagmen Patriot beer by...
It's called Patriot Pilsner by Shoveltown Brewery in Easton, Massachusetts. Very nice.
It's beautiful. I wish we had beers like that. Like, just other beers. Cass and Height get boring really, really fast since they're like the same thing in a different uniform. But we've talked about it a bit before. We have a variety now, but still, it's not what it is in the freedom that is of the US of A. Jesus Christ.
The conglomerates in Korea that own Height and OB and Cass, they're still drawing up plans to assassinate or otherwise destroy the character of all those little independent brewers.
Yeah.
Like you'll suddenly see like a picture will surface. It'll be like COINTELPRO. It'll be like all of a sudden one of these head brewers gets too successful. Pictures of him in women's lingerie will surface or something, or him wearing North Korean flag underwear.
I was gonna say Japanese flag underwear. That would be worse.
Oh, then the crowd would assassinate him.
Yeah, but it's not just the Japanese flag; it's the rising sun flag.
Oh shit! With the rays coming out,
yeah,
get it.
Yeah, you're done, son.
He's got both hands raised, like bonsai. Yeah. I'd love to hear him try to talk his way out of it too. Like, I was doing some coke and.
Really, that's where you would. I was thinking of him trying to concoct some way of like using the washing to have dyed his once white shorts red. Not coke.
He just digs himself into an even deeper hole as he tries to explain it.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't ketchup, you see. It was the menstrual blood of the married woman I was fucking that got all... Excuse me, sir. Say that again. Oh, shit.
Did I say married wife? I meant child. Wait, what? Is that...
Oh, wait, what?
Anywho, so my kid, TV, watches it. To my chagrin.
Yes.
And, because, like, it's... Hopefully I'm not too loud, but because that's what it is nowadays. It's hard to not. But she doesn't watch, like I said, The Office or The Walking Dead. She watches like these nursery rhymes, and I know them all. And there's one when you watch them on repeat, they get disturbing. And there's one in particular that I wanted to make a video of. I wanted to do something about because it's just so bothersome. And it's the one about this mother duckling. She has 5 ducks, and she goes to the lake with them. Mm-mm. They go swimming. Only 4 come back. Now, if you went to the lake with 5 of your children, and only 1 came back, what would you do? I mean, only 4 came back. 1 went missing. What would you do?
Just try to get ahead of the situation before Department of Social Services comes. Just try to get all the kids together with an alibi.
Yeah.
All right. Remember,
the thing you wouldn't do
to begin with. No, but you call the police, obviously.
Yeah, but there's ducklings, right? I don't know the duck police, but you wouldn't go back the next day with your 4 ducklings, right? Like
you wouldn't wait a day. No, that's snapping food, snapping turtle food.
So
if you leave it out there for too long.
This duck brings her ducklings back. Now 4. Her, like, quintuplet, sextuplet, whatever, is now 4. My brain is still not working yet. And then they go swimming. 3 come back. She does this every single day until there's none.
Okay.
And this is where it gets heartbreaking, because when she's got none, she goes back to the lake, and then they all 5 come back. Yeah. I find that so messed up, because it's, to me, I start imagining this one duck is lost her marbles. She's just in grief and in loneliness and in horror.
Oh, so it is sad. Like, they're not just not coming home. Like, she thinks they're dead.
That's what that's, or like, what else? Like, she goes to this lake with these 5 ducklings and leaves with 4.
Oh.
And then comes back the next day, next week, whatever. It doesn't say, the interval in time is not explained, but comes back, loses a duck, goes back to the same lake. So she's delusional.
To the other ducklings, when the pattern becomes clear to the ducklings, like, let's say there's like 3 left, they start scheming and plotting to see who's going to be like the next one to get left behind.
That's true. Like maybe they take
try to, like,
the duck that they don't like and they like push it out a little bit farther into the lake, hoping to offer it as like an offering to whatever this vicious lake is. And please don't take us, take Jimmy. He's got a bum leg. He won't make it anyways.
Or like, like one of them nips at the mother's butt with its beak and then just pops away, and then it looks like the duckling that's closest to it now did it. And the mama duck just goes, all right, you're the last in line, you little fucker. Oh, gets picked off by a giant snapping turtle, like an ancient reptile with a curved beak, snaps it up.
Well, life is hard, right? God damn, Tan. Tranquilo, eh? So,
Tranquilo, way.
So, and it just always disturbed me watching this. Trying to understand
teach life lessons in this ham-fisted way where, your daughter's not even 2, is she? It's
no, she's
like,
1.5. I think it's just trying to teach him how to count. But, like...
That's a fun...
like,
just count. Do like a very animated hand sequence or something. Like, here, 1, 2, 3.
You're unfamiliar
How
with
many
this?
fingers?
You're unfamiliar with this 5 little ducklings went swimming one day. You're not familiar. Okay, that's fine. There's a lot of, like, there's one where they count Indians, and they call them Indians. 10 little Indians, and they just count them. And then I start thinking, like, why are you counting Indians? Are you trading them? Are you commodified? Like, why are you counting Indians? It's...
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Anyways.
So weird.
So, I'm glad I got that off my chest.
Fun. So what does your daughter think about this show? Or shows like it?
I have no idea. There's stuff she likes, there's stuff she doesn't like. She, of course, likes the Baby Shark song, like everybody else does. She likes Wheels on the Bus.
Speaking English and Korean? What's she speaking?
Well, we speak English in the house, mostly. Because her outside life is all Korean. So we want... But, so she understands both, right? Like, she tells you to sit in Korean. Like, she goes, Anja! And yeah, it's really fun. She's pretty damn cute. And her favorite word is umne, which is like upsayo, umne. So like, it's empty, it's gone. So she says that a lot about stuff. And it's great to me, like, to understand the concept of no more, I think is pretty
and to
good. Say
it with kind of like a sassy inflection. Like, it's not it's not direct. It's almost like, what are you looking at me for? It's almost like that kind of an attitude. Like, it's cute.
Yeah, she's pretty adorable. But she's like learning both English and Korean. The shows are mainly in English, the songs and stuff. Like, because we want her to be exposed and to know both. But that's. She's coming at a strange age. I hate the expression. Just like there's 2 expressions I hate when we try to talk about a mental state of a person, and one of them is midlife crisis. I think that's very demoralizing and also very dismissive, as is the term the terrible twos. And I think that's what my daughter's going through right now, and it's It's very trying. It's a lot of complaining, a lot of whining. It's a lot of trying to asserting a like not dominance, independence, but also like an ability to communicate her wants. And it's a very frustrating stage for kids because their brains are probably at a bigger, like their mental capacity is at a larger stage than it ever was before, but they still don't have the ability to, vocalize their wants and desires.
Yeah.
You know?
I always think it's kind of like, I know this isn't true, but it's just funny for me to imagine that, like you said, their brains are getting larger at that age. They're becoming more aware of their surroundings and of they're identifying patterns more handily. And I just imagine that, like, poor little Aurora, for instance, or some other baby her age is just like, when the door of her bedroom's shut, she's just looking around, right? And she just lowers her head and her forehead into her hand, lights a ciggy. She's like, I got to shit 3 times a day. Is this forever? Is my life going to be punctuated by putting fucking food into my mouth and shitting it out and pissing water out? Why is my body so inefficient?
Right.
Why can't I just drink fucking the water I need and keep it in there? What the fuck? Why do I have to? I ate a delicious meal that my mommy and daddy made me yesterday. It was all healthy and shit. My shit looked like Chernobyl's basement. What the fuck? Like, probably like stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh God,
why am I compelled to try to touch it?
Am I?
Yeah.
This is not a vacation. I'm not going back up inside mommy.
No.
This is forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depressed.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thanks, bud. Yeah. I have to go walk around with the fact that I have ripped my child out of unbeing, out of the comfort of never having existed into existence. Nice. Thanks, buddy. So let's get on with our segment called Boozing Through the Week, which is when I take random stuff from stuff I've probably written because I'm too lazy to look up other stuff. And I got another one. Let's put that down. And I asked Brett about it, and he tells me what comes to mind. First one, Teddy Roosevelt. What comes to mind? What do you think of when I say Teddy Roosevelt? Theodore Jenkins Roosevelt. I don't know if that's his middle name. I just made it up. Theodore Roosevelt.
Cogliones, which is like Italian for balls. I think he's got balls. Oh. It's got to be one word, right?
Anything you want. Just we'll figure out this game as we go. Balls. Why?
The guy's got balls of steel. He gets shot and he continues giving a speech.
Yeah, that is balls, man.
He goes down and like helps to discover the well springs of the Amazon. Mm. He damn near dies. Like, he goes in there after he's been president.
Yeah.
Goes up the river in a boat. He just could not. Yeah, balls. The guy's got balls. And he wasn't stupid either. This wasn't the courage that comes from ignorance. The man was perfectly aware of what he was doing.
Yeah, he kind of encapsulates that idea of the adventure of the American man, right? Like even like up there with the Hemingway types, where you can get a bullet and still be articulate. You can.
Funny, I almost look at him as an American translation of Richard Francis Burton, like the Victorian adventurer. Mm. This idea of I almost look at him as interpreting that.
Oh, interesting.
There's this. Yeah, I don't, because if he were an American. I don't know if Americans were consciously adventurers before him. I just think they did it. I just think they fucking did. Like, they just some bearded Kentuckian who's like, I hate my wife. I have no money.
Right.
I'm an asshole, and my parents were assholes. I can't stand it. He grabs his rifle and says, "I'll see you in 6 months." And meanwhile, he goes out and tries to make a living for himself out there. He gets into fist fights with fucking Indians. He learns how to gather raccoon pelts or whatever pelts in a good way and sell them to trap for traders and shit. He goes out too far and gets skewered by Comanches. Like, I don't know. Like,
right. It's not it's not exploration for the sense of exploration. It's exploration we got
nothing back home. Yeah.
We gotta go west.
America's so big. Yeah. It's like you can't go anywhere in Europe, but in America you could for a time. You could just go.
Go to take. Go. Yeah.
It was like, what the fuck? And there was no army. There's no forts out there a lot of the time. You're just going out. Like the last guy, you say, I believe I'm the last white face you'll see for quite a while. Might as well load up on jerky and pemmican and whatnot.
What a world. What a time. Jesus. Where are you going?
And then you learn
that way.
Learn from a guy. Yeah, I'm going that way. California's that way, right? Yeah, it is follow the setting sun.
Does anybody know what's that way? No? Okay. I'll figure it out.
Savages of all descriptions and Mexicans. It's like, oh, Jesus. Yeah, different type. But Theodore Roosevelt was I do think, though, that in Victorian England, there was a sense of daring do or some kind of, I don't know what the contemporary word for it was, like with the gallantry. Thank you, the gallantry.
Right.
Thank you, my own alcohol-laden brain, for scooping that one out. The sense that you go out into the world and your feats of daring redound well for the empire. It's like an adventure.
Well, I brought him up because they're taking the American Museum of Natural History is taking down his statue, and I thought it was quite interesting because it shows what this is about, right? Like it's almost like an educational moment. I thought it happened like late last week, and it was because it has nothing to do with him. It has to do with how the statue was depicted when it was erected in 1940 with like an Native American with the headdress and stuff beside him and the black man beside him. The museum had nothing. They're like, we're going to name more stuff after him. Like we got a biodiversity hall we're going to name after him because he was such a great conservationist. But the statue is kind of racist. It has nothing to do with him. It has more to do with the fact that it is art. Not the fact that it is a representation. And I think that's what we need to remember with these statues is that they are depictions. They are art. They are, in the case of these Confederate statues, propaganda. Now, the next name on our list, and I'm
wait, before you go real quick, what pose was he adopting? Like what was...
Oh, the depiction. Oh, he's on a horse. He's on a horse, and the Indian is on one side of him, and the black man is on the other side of him. And it has to do with the race. It has to do with the hierarchy of it, and there's like debates about this for a long time, right? And
believe it or not, I see that. I think a friend of mine brought to my attention the statue of Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln in Boston, where he's got his hand over a manumitted slave or an about to be freed slave, and the slave is abject and looking up at this white Messiah.
Yeah, very much Christ-like.
I understand that, but I think there should be no mistake about the kind of man that Lincoln was and the kind of man that TR was. I don't think. I mean, if they were racist, if they ever acted on that racism, I think that I don't know about TR though. I don't know about TR. I don't know as much about TR. I'm not going to wade into those waters.
Right.
But I can see that. I can see wanting to depict the actions of Theodore Roosevelt in a much more charitable way, where he's not on a horse, for instance, and the three of them are walking together. Maybe they're all on the same plane. They're all on the same, could be, but maybe that's even too idealized for people's liking. Could be. Maybe it's not rooted in truth at all. Maybe TR was a prick to black folk and Indians.
It's just a weird statue in that way. To see, I wrote that article, and just to see the comments, the vitriol underneath, people didn't read it. Right? They're like, what?
Well,
They're going after
this is
TR now and blah, blah, blah. And,
I think this is good because this is exactly what negotiations look like. One side pushes until the other side can't take it and pushes back, and they meet somewhere in the middle. No, I don't think anyone gives too much of a shit who we should listen to about fucking Robert E. Lee, for instance, but or Jefferson Davis. But, Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, okay, maybe there's some legitimate pushback. Maybe there's somewhere people can meet in the middle on it. But I interrupted you again. I'm going to stop doing that.
No, that's fine. No, It's interesting that you think it's part of the discussion. I just think that nobody reads the damn thing. Like there's a lot of reaction just to the idea of it, and you'll be like, no, read what is actually going on first before you do it. But then you got Trump who retweets and who doesn't do that, who just reacts and sends out pro white, like from a rally in his support, and somebody says white power, and he retweets that and says great people. Like you fucking moron. Next one on the list.
Did you read the official not apology but explanation from the White House for that?
Sort of. I have to look at it soon. I have to probably make sure we did it. But I saw it in another article, and it was like he didn't listen. He didn't read it.
You didn't hear. You didn't see the whole post.
Yeah, it's first 9 seconds of it. Maybe don't have the president do shit like that. Then how about that? How about that? Next
maybe they're lying to us. Maybe like it's a fucking lie. Of course he did. He saw it. Anyway.
Mike Pompeo. I'm really curious what you think of him.
Why isn't he in jail yet?
That's what you think.
Like Mike Pompeo, he's like, you remember how Nixon didn't fall really? Like he jumped, but everybody around him was falling. And
right.
He read the tea leaves. He's like, I'm next.
Right.
Like, Pompeo's one of those guys. He's got to be indicted.
For what?
Like he's got. I don't know. I don't know.
Anything and everything.
He just strikes me as very indictable.
Pompeo, indictable. Yeah. I cover him every day. I've kind of taken the State Department under my, that's my beat because I find it fascinating, and I usually think of him as in terms of sanctions, right? Like I don't think he's a dumb man.
No.
And he has these plans for like Venezuela and Iran and China, and I'm very interested in the Iran and Venezuela storyline that's going on. And I don't know, like I find him interesting because I'm not a smart enough man to know how to fix either of those situations. So I feel like it's really difficult for me to chastise him for doing something that I don't think I could fix. But he is under investigation right now. For like little stuff, like by the IGs, but then he apparently told Trump to fire the State Department IG, investigator general, because he was being investigated by him for a bunch of stuff. Right? There's like several.
Oh yeah, I did. I heard this. Yeah.
There's two. The two that get the most play are concerning him having like a State Department employee do like his laundry and stuff, like stuff for him and his wife. Something dumb like that. And another one has to do with like expediting an arms sale to Saudi Arabia. It's like a $9 billion arms sale, which is a little more serious.
Expediting.
Yeah.
By expedition, he means we don't need to tell anybody about this. Let's not get the bureaucracy involved. A lot of red tape. We just settle this here. It's like that fucking scene from Fargo. I figure we'd take care of it right here in Brainerd, in Tehran. But I just imagine that when they're going to finally subpoena Pompeo, they're going to open his door. They're going to knock on his door first, open it up, and they're going to see like his secretary, like manicuring his nails, like on the state. He's like, "What? What did I do wrong? This is absolutely adequate use of State Department revenue."
This sounds fat shaming because I'm not like super slim myself, but he's a little too pudgy and a little too supportive of Trump for my comfort to be like there's not something wrong with what's going on here. It's the two together. It's not the separate. It's the two together. It's this like fat off the cow kind of thing. That.
Oh, you mean he looks like an old like Punch, like Victorian era cartoon of a corrupt politician or something?
A little bit. A little bit.
Like there's a picture of him. There's a picture of him with both fists on his waist, either side of his waist, and he's got a giant hat, and he's and like it's just like this little like Trump heads in orbit around him, like scowling.
Because it's your connection to him and Nixon is interesting because he might fall. Him and Barr, right? Him and Barr.
Oh, Barr too, absolutely. Barr, the Justice Department and the State Department. if you even pay half attention to what the New Yorker and the Atlantic and Slate are saying about the matter, even the New York Times, like they're fully corrupted. New York Times editorial anyway posits that.
Well, people are asking for my dog. That's who that is. Sorry. And the last on the list for today's boozing through the week. Thank you, Tim.
Stop.
Franz Kafka.
Oh boy, incomprehensible. I don't really understand. Franz Kafka. I always get the impression that when I read a Franz Kafka story, everyone's in prison, and even though folks are speaking the same language, they don't understand each other. Like the complete breakdown of freedom and communication. Like that's what I think of when I read. And whenever I read anything by him, I feel oppressed.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I enjoy it. I think something is happening, but he's allegorical, I think, in that sense that everything takes place in Plato's cave in some way.
Right.
Stories.
It's like a theater, like it's a box that something takes place into. Yeah. But we'll get on. We'll get more into that in a minute. I'm boozing through lit. I'm Daryl. He's Brett, and now we're gonna vogue.
Make a point.
Starting off this week, when boozing through lit, fuck a duck.
All right, let's go. So, on this episode of Boozing Through Lit, we're going to be discussing, since we got to get going, let's get right into Franz Kafka and his recent short story in The New Yorker. I got my spiel. You ready for the spiel?
Sir, I'm ready. This is my favorite part.
Well, we'll see. It's been a rough week, so I didn't put as much time into this as I would have liked. So, I used to, with derision, refer to Franz Kafka as the goddamn banker, even though he worked in insurance. Because I thought it was funnier that... Oh, let me start this again. I used to, with derision, refer to Franz Kafka as the goddamn banker, even though he worked in insurance, but because I thought it was funnier to call him the goddamn banker. When I was young and naive, I looked down on him for being middle class, scoffing at the notion that someone comfortable had anything to say that was worthwhile. All while ignoring my own middle class existence and that all of my favorite writers were essentially middle class, if not higher. Now older, I realize my stupidity, even though I still like calling him the goddamn banker because it's funny. But I never really liked his work that I read. At least, I didn't like them as much as everyone else did, right? Like going to like creative writing school, everybody loved The Trial and Metamorphosis, and that's usually all that people read by him. And there was a lot of imitation going on. But I thought his work was kind of like whiny and passive characters, you know, that it was hard for me to sympathize with them. The stories we have on offer today by Kafka, and yes, stories in the plural, come from a new collection yet to be published in English. And it would be cool to finally have more of his work translated into my native tongue, to have it as a whole and to read and analyze and to better understand the workings of one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. However, in this form, I have so many questions, not for Kafka, but for those who curated it for The New Yorker. How'd you select these pieces? Wasn't there a full long piece that we could have read? Why didn't you explain to us at the beginning that this was 4 goddamn separate stories? Why did I have to learn that from a translation note? On this week's Boozing Through The New Yorker, the rescue will begin in its own time. Brett?
Yeah. I mean, story, one of them is not a story, right? One of them is not the first one.
Yeah.
The other 3 perhaps are. At least that there's something being told. There's a narrative that's being described. So technically they are stories. Yeah. There are characters kind of that. What I love about Kafka too is that there's often he often approaches setting in a very abbreviated like his descriptions of setting are abbreviated if they exist at all. Like I'm thinking of the castle.
Right.
The castle setting was so important to that story, more so than Metamorphosis and the trial, for instance. But
it's called the castle, right?
The castle, exactly.
Yeah.
But well, no, maybe not Metamorphosis. All right. So leave that to one side. Whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, you would think that a story called The Castle would hint at an extended description of said castle, and there really isn't. The main character never gets inside. He doesn't really see it very clearly. Oftentimes it's wreathed in fog, and sometimes it doesn't look very spectacular at all. It looks very boring. But it's almost like a how do I say this? Almost like a presentiment of the architecture that would emerge in the interwar period. It is very functional in Austria. But I think that's deliberate. There's this sense that what's happening in these stories is almost a dream,
right?
Or in some cases, a nightmare. These voices these people just sort of emerged from blankness.
Right. They're like apparitions.
And it really doesn't, like apparitions, right? So you would imagine that because Kafka was a citizen of the Austrian Empire, in the Czech. What do they call
what would become the Czech Republic?
Right, but I forget how Austria-Hungary
Ottoman Empire?
No, subvocalized their different territories. They weren't states. They weren't provinces. They were like Kaiserlands or something like that, or Königslands or some shit like that. Anyway, so he's a citizen of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Just imagine it somewhere in there. That there's a very boring, stolid middle class, and there's a very efficient bureaucracy. No one's in charge, which I'm sure is how an Austrian person felt in the final years of the empire. That no one was in charge, and because Franz Joseph wasn't, he did not care about governing. He was infamous for that. But you get the sense that it really doesn't matter where they are. They could be on a post road in Imperial China. They could be. It's like an allegory. Yes, it's very allegorical. Whatever he writes, and I always get the sense that none of it matters. Like he's profoundly everything he writes is purgatorial.
Right.
I have yet to read anything of his that doesn't feel that way. Like these characters are not ever going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Metamorphosis is his most popular story. It actually does seem to mean something. It does seem that there something does happen to a character that you're invested with.
Right.
But I didn't see that in these stories, bro.
Did you realize that there were 4 stories?
No.
I was trying to look.
Well, no. The first read through I didn't.
Yeah.
The second read through I'm like, oh, it's like you said. There's a translator's note at the end that gives it all away. You're like, oh, thanks for that.
Yeah, that would because I was reading it, and the first part is like 4 or 5 lines. It's very short. The whole thing is very short, and it's about 4. The first story is about like Prometheus. The Legend of Prometheus. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to use that through my first read as the framework in which to analyze the other stories.
Yeah, me too.
And I was, it was very confused. Oh, hold on. Skype may be closing on my computer because something's going on. Life is difficult in the, for I'm not sure. I have no idea. We'll just keep going until it does, and if it does, then I apologize. We'll be back. Something's running really hot, apparently. So I'm trying to analyze it through the story of, or like his understanding of Prometheus, and then I get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be reading them as individual pieces, and none of them finish. None of them are complete. I feel like I'm reading the sketch notes, like just like the scribblings of somebody in a notebook. And because it's Franz Kafka, somebody went, We gotta get this out into the public.
We got to get this out there.
We gotta get it published.
Fuck all the living writers who are writing stories. They can't write like it's interesting to think that the most vaunted literary space in the entire country, all of America, they're like, nah, you can't, you living writers on the grind trying to make a living, you guys can't have this space. A man who's been dead for 100 years, his sketches in a notebook you want to throw in a fire that don't offer us anything more than what the trial gave us.
Yeah.
No, these are going to go on here. These are going to go on here.
The thing is, they're being published in a book that's coming out shortly, and the article that they had on it, interviewing the translator and whatnot, one of the titles of a previous book was like the found works of Kafka, and then the translator's like, yeah, I hate that title. These weren't found. They were published in like Czech, and like they were published in academic journals and stuff like that. We're just publishing them in an English book for the first time. Don't call them found. We knew like they weren't like discovered in a shrine somewhere or like at an antique market, stucked away between an old mattress or something.
It's just the classic Western conceit, It's just some thick-bearded Spaniard shows up in a boat, and the people who already live on the island he's come out to meet him, and he's like, I've discovered this for Spain, and he just jams the flag in. And they're like,
the flag goes between the spread toes of the man who lives there.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So it's just, all right. So that makes sense. That maybe the translator's career is being furthered by this publishing. Then maybe somebody's got to benefit from it, because otherwise, what the fuck? Why would you even publish these? They don't mean shit.
They're not.
Listeners. Just we're not being too hard on Kafka. It's like we could be hard on Kafka. The man's a giant. But there's a story where. I read it for the second time, and I found myself getting very irritated. It's actually what woke me up. It's what got me out of my blood sugar torpor.
Yeah, because
it got, because I was so angry that this fucking thing existed. So a man is walking down a road, and it doesn't matter. He could be in Jakarta. He could be in Togo. It doesn't fucking matter. It makes no difference. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, he's walking down some well-paved and efficiently maintained road somewhere in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. A farmer comes out and says, I need your help. My life is a mess. My wife and I aren't getting along, and my kids are retards. And I need help. I need help. And this man goes, he's a stranger. Mm-hmm. He goes, all right, well, I'll try, I'll do my best, but here are my conditions for this work. Mm-hmm. And he names these lists of conditions. It's like, I get to live with you the rest of my life. I'm going to work for you for the rest of my life. You're not going to pay me any money, but you're going to feed me like a laborer's
meat every day.
Meat every day. So you can feed me shit, but it's got to be meat every day. Mm-hmm. And I want 2 gallons of rum every year,
birthday.
My name day.
Whatever that is. I'm assuming that's what that is.
Yeah, something like a yearly occasion. And I want as much beer and spirits as you drink, but I want to drink alone. And the farmer's like, oh God, what have I done? Like, the farmer's like, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And, I can't let you stay in my house. You're going to fuck my wife and kick me out of it. And then I'll be even in a worse spot. Mm. He's like, oh, you got to trust me. Like, I got to trust you. Don't forget. I got to trust that you won't just, take advantage of me if I succeed in this task that you've set for me. Mm-hmm. We got to trust each other. So finally the farmer's like, no, you ought to go on your separate. We ought to go on your own way. I'm just gonna go back. I'm gonna stop beating her.
I'm gonna beat her less.
Beating her. I'm gonna stop punching her around the kitchen for making schnitzel poorly or whatever the fuck. And I don't need your services. And this is like, you used to love anti jokes.
Yeah.
Why did the chicken cross the road? And you just kind of shrug. What the fuck should I know? This is like an anti-joke. So at the end of all this is like the densest section in the whole publication. The stranger goes, well, why were the negotiations? Why did it take so long?
It's like, why? Why is this a
And I'm like,
story?
Kafka, I know what he did. He came home from selling insurance,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to kill himself because he just hated selling insurance. He comes home, it's rain, like it's a light 40-degree Fahrenheit rain, like it's not freezing, but it's not warm. He comes home, he hangs his coat up, his wife asks him how his day went, and he goes, and he draws some schnapps and, takes him down. And in lieu of jerking off to ease the tension, he belted this out. And then he sat down and ate his mutton chops or whatever the fuck, or mutton.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why is this?
Why?
Guys, listeners, if you think I'm exaggerating, Daryl, correct me if I'm, that's the whole story. Like, that's the whole story.
It's the whole story. It's weird. And like, I thought, like, go, are you going to keep going with this? Like, that's fine. Like, but do something with it.
Yeah, I want him to go home and, like, he meets the kids and he realizes they are, like, kind of soft and not very bright. And he sees the wife and she's got a black eye. He's like, oh, God. And they lock the door and they tie the guy up and
the whole thing
strip
is
him
weird.
naked,
The premise is
shave him down,
weird.
cook him. Something.
Yeah, the
but
whole thing is weird.
They're just on this feature list. Like, literally, Kafka describes nothing about how they look, how they talk, where they are. It's just a guy on a road, and a farmer comes out to the road.
Like, we don't know why this guy is walking on the road. I'm assuming he's in rags, but he's not, because he says the clothes I have now will last a while, for like a few years. And like, it's just
absurdist, but before there was absurd. So
thank
I guess
you. Thank you, Kafka. Thank you, New Yorker. I really needed this in my life. Truly, it's what I don't. I remember 3 of the stories. Funny. Oh, the bread. That's the 4th one. I couldn't remember. The bread shriveled up.
It was the 2nd one, but yeah.
That was better. The story's about like a father trying to cut bread and he can't cut bread, and the kids are like, "Fuck, father, cut the damn bread," and like, you try it. And they can't cut the bread, and the bread this shrivels up.
Like, you're not gonna, because if I was like, I'm gonna cut you later, and the bread's like, nope.
Yeah.
But what's great about that is actually my favorite line of the whole stories, I guess, is from that one where the father goes, "Come now, it's not really isn't so surprising I can't cut the bread.
Yeah,
it's even more surprising when it actually works."
I thought that was it's even more surprising that I can't. Yeah, which it makes you think. It makes you think like, oh, like when things succeed, maybe it's maybe it's rare that things actually succeed in life. I liked it. Yeah. I liked that better. But it was still really short, and then I went off from that into the walking, and then there's a captain story, which I can't even really remember. I don't like they're in jail, and
again, it's like this hammer that doesn't work. Yeah. He's hammering his cellmates' fingers and toes for a goof, but it's like I got this hammer, I can break out of prison one day. And he can't even injure his cellmate's hand if he wanted to.
Right. Because he bashes at it, which
bashes his fingers. So
I just don't. It's like, why?
What is it? Does it seem like this to you? Like, it looked like primer stories. Like he's just priming his engines.
He's just playing, which is fine. I'm not going to judge Kafka on this. He didn't publish them. Probably it's just a thing. It's just like him doodling.
Mm-hmm. Like doodling. Exactly.
And I'm not against these being published. Why here and why do you know what it would have been better? A 10,000 word article about them.
Right. Way better. Way more interesting. I can't imagine in another medium this working. I can imagine it maybe in the painting world, where like an unfinished painting from some well-beloved master resurfaces and they put that up. But like, imagine if you're doing a stand-up. Imagine if you're like an elite level stand-up comedian and you're building an hour, as they say, George Carlin used to put out a new stand-up special once every year, once every 2 years, and he'd use all new material. So he's creating an hour. So he goes out on the road, like he writes at home, goes out on the road and just tests it out, tries it out, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
And then finally when it's polished, when it's beautiful, when he's got when he's got all of his bits lined up and he's getting good feedback from the audience,
Right.
he finally, calls HBO and says, let's make it happen. And they do, at a particular venue at a moment in time. And that's it. Like, imagine, like, if he just, all right, HBO, I did this 1 hour in Poughkeepsie, New York, or some backwater, all right, ready to go.
It's like taking the clay that, or like not a painter, a sculptor, and all the stuff that they cut away from the sculpture. You take it and be like, look at this. Yeah. This is the remnants of it.
Just taking a giant piece of marble and you chisel a hand out of it.
Yeah, and it's, it's a mistake or something. Well, when I went to see the Guernica by Pablo Picasso in Spain, I don't remember where I saw it. It's amazing. They have it's got an entire room dedicated to it. But before you get to the painting, they had his sketches of it, like how he made it, how he tried stuff. And so you walk through, if I remember correctly, it was like a decade ago, you walk through this area where they show you this is what this will look like. This is trying different techniques. And I'm assuming Pablo Picasso painted like this, just like this. But just to try. And then you walk through his work process and then you see the real thing. This feels like process.
Process.
But it doesn't mean anything to me. It was just presented here, Kafka short stories. And then at the end, 4 stories translated by this dude. And that's the only way you can find out. It's in parentheses at the bottom to tell you who the translator was. And that's the only way you can find out that it's 4 stories. It's...
what do you think? Again, we could be committing... This question is going to have us directly contradict everything we've been talking about so far, but I think it might be funny and useful. But in trying to pull meaning from these pieces, what do you think in the Prometheus one, where he describes the 4 legends attributed to Prometheus, and the last one? So it's Prometheus steals fire and is tortured by eagles. They tie him to a mountain, and the eagles eat his liver, which keeps coming back. Second one is they injure him so much they keep dropping deeper and deeper into the mountains that he actually becomes the rock. That's number 2. And the third one is that everyone just forgets. The gods, the eagles, Prometheus, they all just forget what they're doing. And then the fourth one is, what is it, that the wound closes up.
Everyone
Even the wound gets tired of it.
Yeah, I'm reading that right now.
Everyone just gets tired of it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And even the wound gets tired, it closes up. And then then Kafka goes, the mountain is the riddle.
Yeah, the real riddle was the mountains. Right? Yeah, I'm looking at that. Yeah.
What do you think about that? Like, what the fuck does that mean, if anything? And again, it might not mean shit. It might just be.
It's just. Do you know why it's just a little bit like Babel? Because he doesn't mention the mountains until the ending. There's no mention of mountains in any of his synopsis. I guess he's basing it on the fact that
in the first one, there's mention of the mountains.
Oh, shackled to a peak.
Caucasus Mountains.
That's it. Yeah. So. Yeah, I thought it was interesting looking at the fact that the problem, as the mountains as a problem, as the problem, not so much anything else. I thought that was kind of interesting. If we got rid of the mountains, maybe this never would have happened. Maybe like Prometheus shouldn't have been working on. Yeah, I don't know. I just got frustrated. I started to stop thinking about it once I realized that the whole damn thing, because I spent so much time trying to understand that in relation to the rest of the pieces. Yeah, but it's cool. I like that. And it would be great for an academic to use that to talk about compared to other works that they know better than we do of his. What did you think of it?
Right. No, I don't know either. I just got a chuckle though thinking what you just said. which is why, of course, I asked you. You have a very unique way of looking at things. I love it. But just the idea, like, if you don't have a mountain, you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And so, like, if it wasn't a mountain, there probably wouldn't have been eagles eating them. It might have been like toads or some land-dwelling animal or something. You know, just some other animal. There's no mountain.
Yeah.
But you know, Jorge Luis Borges was an adroit student of Kafka.
And you love his work. You're a big fan.
I love, and these do remind me of some of later Borgian sketches that don't really resonate very well with me. I don't really understand them as well, but you know, some of them are quite good. But anyway, so there's a story called The Immortals, and it's about a Roman soldier that Borges wrote a Roman soldier who he goes out into the wilderness further than any Roman soldier has ever gone. I forget why, but I think it's to retrieve the lost works of Plato or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But eventually what happens is, I know. It's to find a spring that apparently grants eternal life to whoever drinks from it. And he traverses a vast distance. You know, how Romans understood, you know, Iran and India to be, you know, just deserts that flay your skin from your bones, and, you know, places where there are giant animals that carry you off, and troglodytes and these things. Anyway, so he finally makes it to a place where in the distance he can see this gleaming white city. It's just this enormous city on a plateau in the distance. And he gets closer and closer. At the base of the plateau, he notices there are these troglodytes who seem to ignore him. And there's this little freshwater source that they seem to be congregating around. And he fills up his little flask with the water in there, and he decides to go into the plateau and try to enter the city from the bottom because there's no other way to get in. And the city is just breathtaking, right? Just giant porticos, columns, huge cupolas, everything's gleaming white marble. But something dawns on him after a few minutes in this place, that this city was designed by madmen. Like, the steps are uneven. He notices that no two steps are exactly alike. Staircases go into walls. Windows are asymmetrical. There's trap doors and everything all over the place. Everything is slightly off center. Nothing's proportional. Nothing has any purpose, right? There's these cavernous rooms with nothing in them, and then there's these tiny, tiny, tiny rooms packed with furniture. Like, it's absurd. And he thinks he's going to go mad in there, and he finally finds his way out. And of course, the punchline to that short story is that the troglodytes are actually, you know, Plato and Aristotle, and the spring they've been drinking from is the spring of eternal life, just outside the city. But they built that city apparently out of boredom. The Immortals did. Right. But I just think of Kafka's work, or just works in general that don't make much sense, that they're kind of like that city. They're gorgeous, and they're told very deliberately, but they're told to, it's almost like the author, Kafka, didn't quite know what he was doing, which is totally fine. Yeah. But he didn't quite know what he was trying to say, but he was incredibly capable, incredibly gifted, incredibly creative and imaginative.
Similar to
the Metamorphosis is brilliant. It's just a fucking wonderful little short story. It's terrifying and wonderful and weird, and
the Trial is good too, right? Like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his work, you can't deny the fact that how important they are, right? And for, like, similar to Hemingway in the publishing posthumous work, Kafka he told his, like, executive to burn all his stuff when he died. Most of his stuff was published posthumously. For a man who didn't want most of his work published, now we're publishing, like, his scribbling and, like, his notebook stuff. This feels very invasive. You want to talk about insulting in a way? Now we're going to look at his work through this? I don't know if that's fair. I really don't think it's, like, But he's dead, so he doesn't get a. He doesn't have a say.
No, he doesn't get a say.
Yeah.
He doesn't get a say.
And on that
I don't
note,
know.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm Daryl. He's Brett. We're boozing, and we're getting really, really tired of these freaking New Yorker stories not being
Yeah,
stories.
we might have to find. What was the other one you suggested? Let's try that one next week.
Yeah, well, we should have another issue, right? Another issue. We'll get another one. And until next time, brothers and sisters of the pen, keep scribbling.